Welcome to the VB Toolbox. This is another tutorial on visualbasic.net. In this tutorial I'll be showing you the basics of string manipulation and how we can use that to control how our strings are formatted, and some other tricks and tools. So let's go ahead and jump into a new project. I'm going to create a Windows Forms application. I'm just going to call it My Strings, and we'll hit OK. It'll generate a new form for us, and from here we're going to go ahead and add a few basic controls here. I'm going to mostly be using text boxes, maybe a couple of radio buttons. Let's get started. If you don't have your toolbox available to you, you can get to that by clicking View and Toolbox. First thing I want to grab is a text box control, so we'll go down here, find the text box. You can double click it or drag it to your form. From here I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out just a little bit, and I'm going to having this selected, I'm going to press Control C, and then I'm going to press Control V to duplicate that text box. I'm going to create one over here on this side as well. I'm going to stretch that out, and this one I'm going to make a multi-line. So you want to go over to the properties of the text box and find the multi-line property and select True, and that'll allow us to stretch this out vertically. Now from here, let's go ahead and grab this first text box. I'm going to Control C and Control V that again, and create a couple more of these. Let's go ahead and just create 5 of them. And we're going to be doing something a little different with each one. I'm going to make my form just a little wider here because I'm going to want some space on the side. Let's see, starting with the first one, what we'll be doing is typing in a plain string and then copying that string to this output box. So I'm going to call this one, having this selected, we'll go to our properties and name it txt plain. And then let's go ahead and jump over to our output box and name that txt output. So with that, let's grab a label control so we can kind of keep track of what we're doing. I'm going to call this label, actually I'm not going to rename it since we won't be utilizing it. It's just a visual. I'm going to call this plain string, like that. And if you want, you can copy that and paste it with Control C and Control V, and we'll do that for each box. Go ahead and line those up as you see fit. We'll be using each one of these for different purposes, but it's just a quick way to create a basic form layout. So let's see, starting with we can go ahead and just rename these. I'm sorry. This one we're going to use for string casing. So I'm going to call this string case. And this one we'll use for a search tool. So we'll just call it find. And with this one we'll be replacing, so we'll call it replace. And finally this is going to be split string, so I'm just going to rename this split string. Okay. I guess since we're in here designing our form, we'll go ahead and add our radio buttons and commands as well. I'm going to add a radio button right here, and this radio button I'm going to call RB lower. So go to the name property and change that to RB lower, and find the caption or the text on that and change that to lower. I'm going to squeeze this box out a little more here so I have more space. And let's go ahead and set the check value on this in our properties to checked equals true. And Control C and Control V will create another. You can use your arrow keys to kind of move that into position as you see fit. And this is going to be our uppercase one, so I'm going to call this one in the name property. I'm going to call it RB radio button upper. We're going to use these to change the case of our text in our string. And let's change the caption text on that to upper. Alright, looks pretty good, except we can't have them both checked, so I'm going to set that upper one to checked as false. And then when we toggle back and forth between those, they'll switch places. So I'm going to add one more label here. I'm just going to copy this, paste it, Control V here, and I'm going to put that by find, and I'm going to change the text value on that to not found, and I'll show you what we'll be doing with that in a little bit here. If you want, you can kind of change the font on it as well. If you go up to the font property and click the little ellipses here, we can go select bold from the font style and select OK. Now it looks like we need a little more space here, sorry about that. And we will want to change the name property because I'm actually going to be using this one, so I'm just going to call this LBL find. And let's add two command buttons. Go to our toolbox here, and we'll add a command button for replace. Squeeze that in there a little bit. And for the name of this button, I'm going to call it CMD.Replace. And if we scroll down to the text, we can just call it replace. And I'm going to Control C and Control V here. Oh. There we go, sorry. Alternatively, you can just drag another button over here if you have trouble with that. This one I'm just going to call split. I'm going to go up to the name property and also change that to CMD for command button and call it split as well. That'll help us reference those. For our split string text box, I'm going to change that to TXT_split. And for our replace, I'm going to change that to TXT_replace. And for our find, I'm going to call that TXT_find in the name property. And this one I'm going to call TXT_case. Alright, I think that's good enough. I think we can start manipulating our code now to play with strings. So let's go ahead and go into our form code. I'm just going to double click on the form. Probably won't be using the form load event, so we can just get rid of that if we want. Now just a quick, very basic overview. What a string is a data type that is essentially an array or a collection of characters. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, all your punctuation, those are all characters that can be stored to a string. So actually what we want to do, we'll back up here. If we go back to our form, first thing we want to do is just the most basic and simple thing. We're going to type in our txt plain box there for our plain text, and we're just going to copy that string value from that field over to the output field on the form. So to do this is very simple. We'll just call the txt plain by name, grab the text value, which is a string, except for I did that backwards. Sorry about that. txt output dot text equals txt plain dot text. Okay. So what we're doing here is while we're typing, the text change event will be firing the whole time. So whenever we type in our txt plain box, it'll immediately be copied over to the txt output box. So if you want, you can run your application now, and you can just try it. Try typing in here. Looks like it's working properly. So everything we type in here gets copied over. So that's really the most simple way to copy a string value and see it in action. Now a little more tricky and fun will be changing the case of your string. It's actually really not that tricky. If we go back to our form and double click in our string case box, this time what we'll do is we will use our radio buttons here to change the case of our string, and we'll format it on the fly. So what we'll start with an if statement. We'll say if radio button lower dot checked, then txt output dot text equals, and here we'll use the lowercase function to actually change the case of our text as we type it. So we'll say LCase txt case dot text. That's the text that's in our case field. So if the value of this radio button is checked, if that's true, then change our txt output text to a lowercase version of whatever's in our case string case field. Alright. However, we'll say else if radio button upper dot checked, then txt output dot text equals UCase. We'll use the uppercase function to convert it to uppercase. txt case dot text. So let's go ahead and give this a test so we can get a visual of what we're actually doing here. Now, if our lower radio button is checked, it should convert whatever text we have typed into this box to lowercase. And this should change it to uppercase as we type. So let's try it out. We'll give it a shot. Let's say lower. I'm going to type in mixed case, hello world. Notice how, as it was copied over, it was converted to lowercase. So what happens if we change that to uppercase? Well, let's try typing in lowercase. This is awesome. So it doesn't matter whether you use mixed case or anything else, it's going to convert it. So that's a pretty easy string manipulation there. What if we want to find a specific word or part of a word in our text? Most of us have used find and replace in various applications, whether it's Word or Excel or anything else. Well, I will show you how. We will just jump into our form again and find the find box, and we'll double click on this to generate a text changed event, so it'll monitor as we type. Now when you do a find in Visual Basic, it's going to be a case-sensitive search. So if we type in mixed case and try to compare to a string, say, you know, we have mixed case over here, but we have all uppercase over here, they're not going to match. They're not. So what we want to do is kind of level the playing field, and you can actually have it both ways if you want. We could do another radio button set here to say, do I want an exact match by case, or does it not matter? For now, we're just going to say, you know, we want to match and we don't care about case. So what we'll do is we'll say if LCase, converting our output text to lowercase, dot text dot contains, that's how we search for a specific string within a string, lowercase txt find dot text. If this is true, if converting the text in both fields to lowercase, if it finds a match, then it's true. So we'll say lbl find dot text equals found. And we can do something fun as well. We'll say lbl find dot forecolor equals red. Okay. Otherwise, if it's not found, we'll say lbl find dot text equals not found, and we'll change the color back to black. Alright, so let's give this a little try here. We can use our plain string to say, hello everyone, how are you doing today? Alright, and we can go to our find box and say horse is not found. But it found something in there, didn't it? If we use 1, 1 is found. Where is 1 found? How about everyone? So it found the string here within the string. If we throw in a couple random characters, oh, it's not found anymore. There's no match. So nope. See, we've lost it there. So that's in today, so it's going to find it. So it scans it as we type. Pretty cool stuff. So that's how you do a search through a string. If we took off the LCase, then we would have to, you know, if we wanted to search for hello, if we took off the lower casing, we would have to search for hello in that particular instance with an uppercase H, because uppercase and lowercase are not the same. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how to find text within a text. Now, what if we want to replace text? Well, what we can do there is go back to our form, and we'll double click on our replace button to generate a click event. So when we click the button, we'll be able to set the txt output dot text equals, and we're going to make a copy of the output text into itself, replacing what we want to replace at the same time. So we'll say txt output dot text copies it to itself, but we're going to use the text strings replace function at the same time, and what we want to replace is whatever it finds in the txt find box that we use to search for text with whatever is in the text replace box. Alright. So if this works, we set the value of this to equal the value of itself, replacing whatever's in our find box with whatever's in our replace box. So let's just give this a little test. Okay. So let's see. What if I want to find the word cool? Okay, it's in there. And I want to replace it with the word weird. So here we have really cool. I'm going to hit the replace button, and there it goes on the fly. How about that? So you can do you can scan your whole file or text box or whatever this whatever string this contains, we can search it. So that teaches you how to find in a string and replace items in a string. So what if we want to split a string? Now string splitting, I mean, you can get really complex with string splitting. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. Something that you'll run into a lot in the real world are delimited files, usually comma delimited, tab delimited, and files with all sorts of delimiters in them. And I'll show you how to read and process those. So we'll go back to our form, and we'll double click on our split string, and this will teach us how to split the strings. First up, we'll go ahead and clear the contents of our txt output box. So we'll say txt output dot clear to get rid of anything that's already in there. And now what we're going to do is loop through the values in our split string. So I'll kind of show you what I mean by this. We're going to create a for each loop. We'll say for each word as a string in split txt split dot text. And here's the delimiter that we want to use. Where do we want to split it? Now, you may want to split it on every space that's found in there, or you could use a comma delimited. You could make it comma delimited by using a comma. So whatever string you want to use as a splitter, you'll enter into this little area. You could use a space, comma, a bar, whatever. I'm just going to try a basic comma delimited split. So this is going to loop through the entire string, and it's going to search for words, and this is sort of an arbitrary value. I could use W if I wanted, or anything else. I'm just using word because it makes sense to us. So I'm going to search for words that exist between our splitting delimiter. So I'm going to take txt output dot text and set it to txt output dot text, and I'm going to add on our word. Whatever word is found, it's going to concatenate it or add it on to our string. And then what I'm going to do is add a line break. Okay, VBCRLF. Excuse me. So that copies the output text back to the output text string, adds on whatever word it finds after each delimited value, and then drops it down a line. So let's go ahead and give this a little test. I'm going to start the app. I'm going to create a split string here. I'm going to say, well, comma, this, comma, is, comma, strange. Alright, so it should cycle through, it'll loop through this string, and anytime it finds a comma, it's going to break the string, it's going to split it, and it's going to add a line break. Oh, you can actually see it's already doing that. Did I? Oh, I put it in the text change. I meant to add that to the String.Split button there. So if you wanted to do that, you could just grab this and associate it with the button instead of the field there. But as you can see, it definitely works. Get rid of that. This is a test. There it is. So at each instance of this, it breaks it out. You can use this for testing, you know, writing to files and whatnot. Splitting out, you could read a comma delimited file if you wanted with that. It's pretty cool. So that's how you split a string. Now if you wanted, you could also grab a specific index of this split string and write it back. You could loop through and say, you know, I only want whatever's found at index position, you know, 2. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can grab a specific word out of that string if you wanted. Let's see. That's really about all there is to it. You know, we could do other functions. We could do a word count if you wanted. Let's say grab a button here. Say I want to count the words in my box here. By using spaces as a delimiter, you can say word count cmd word count as the name of that button. Come back in here and then I can create a variable here. I'll just call it dim count as integer equals 0, and then what I can do is loop through the string again and split it wherever there's a space, and then increment this counter and then report how many words it finds. So I could say for each word as a string in split, our string that we want to split is the txt output box. So I'll say txt output dot text, and I want to split wherever there's a space, so I'm going to use that as my delimiter. And then I'll say count plus equals 1. What that does is that every time it loops through, for each word that it finds, it goes through the loop and increments this value by 1. Okay, that's what plus equals operator does. And then when it's all done outside of our loop, I'm going to say show me a message box, and I'm going to put a string in here. I'm going to say I counted, put a space, end it, and then I'm going to concatenate this string. That's what the ampersand does. It concatenates, or basically sticks parts together in a string. And then I'm going to add my count number, and then I'm going to concatenate another little portion here. I'm going to open quote, space, and I'm going to say words. So if this works, it should say I counted and the number of words. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Alright, we'll hit word count. I counted 1 word, so it's probably just grabbing the white space here. This is a test. I counted 4 words. This is a test. So I think it just counts the blank space in the beginning as a space, but you kind of get the idea. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So you could also do a character count if you wanted, doing pretty much the same thing, but instead of counting the words, you count the characters in the string array. So we could do that just for fun. I'm going to Control C and Control V this button here. I'm just copy it. I'm going to say character count. CMD char count. Click on that, double click on that button to go to the click event. And you can say dim count as integer equals 0, and then we'll, instead of looping through a split string, we'll just loop through the entire text, counting each character that it finds. So we'll say for each C as character type in txt output dot text count plus equals 1. I'll say message box. I counted space end quote ampersand ampersand. Whoop, I want a space here, otherwise it'll continue right from the end of the number there. So we put a space between that and the next word. Characters. Now, when you do this, every character will be counted, and there are some hidden characters as well that you might not see in the ASCII code. You know, carriage returns may return as a character, and you know, other invisible characters that you can't see. So it's not 100% accurate, and you know, it could be made more accurate if you wanted to spend the time doing that. But for now, we can say, "Hi there." Do a character count. I count 9 characters, so that includes spaces and punctuation and everything else. So that's basically you know, a quick rundown of what you can do with strings, and you know, there are a number of other functions, and strings are really important for pretty much any app. Pretty much all of these fields have a text property that contains strings. Strings are something that you'll use very frequently in your programming. So if you have any questions or you know, want to leave some feedback, please do. If you found this useful, or you know, you want to know more, or you know someone else that would find it useful, please share it. Subscribe. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.